good afternoon to everybody. It's a pleasure to have you here. And a quick introduction myself, Peter Mossbauer, about 37 years now in telco and service management business with industry, with service providers, and many. Long story, so you can look it up somewhere. Today, I have the pleasure to take you through network audit. My colleagues have asked me if I could show some things about, and one thing I of course did notice is and notice back to them is it's not just a solution. You know, network audits is based on the scope, on tasks, on standards, on CVE data input, legal. I'm fairly quickly going through that, so don't worry. We have prepared a handout for you where these slides are on, and also screen capture, so you can track it back and see and do a recap on that, what's in and how does it work and what are the key points, and also links where to find things, you know, and I will come to that. So, you know, first network audits, you know, and as we had discussed that internally, you know, it's not just throwing a software at a network and see, okay, everything is solved. No, it is first what problems to address with that, you know, so what is covered, what is not covered, what can be tracked, what can be repeatedly done, you know. You can do it manually, you can do it in an automated way, and what's behind it. And then the question that, you know, was coming up, do we need to do it? Are there any legal obligations? I will come to that because that's pretty heavy. And, you know, commercial impacts, you know, if you don't take care about your IT infrastructure, networks, if you have vulnerabilities on, you leave it running, you know, it will run for a while, of course, but, you know, it will be vulnerable if you don't do anything about, you know, and, you know, what will happen if you don't do it and it goes wrong, you know, are there costs behind, fines, liability? And of course, you know, all the reputation loss, if this comes up to the public, you know, lost future business, many things to watch. And then, of course, you know, how can it be solved and addressed, you know, what to have in place. And that consists of processes, manual parts, and, you know, and everything you can automate it, of course, makes it easier, you know, so because, of course, you can, if you have 20, 30, 40,000 devices out in the field, you can check them manually, you know, but if you want to do it on a daily basis, could be exciting, you know, so it wouldn't work, you know, so better to automate it. Also, you want to have reports, you need to document things like that, and you know how to get into that, you know, so, and for the automation, I just picked up a image from one of the InfoSim documents, you know. You need the information somewhere, you have to get it, and then you have to do something with it, you know, basically put up a compliance report and check it on a regular basis. So as I promised, we're not just talking about tools, solutions, is, you know, the first thing which you note, and this is network audit checklists. And it's nothing that we did invent, you know, you can go on the web, just type that into Google, network audit checklists, you get many of them, you know, and most of them define 5 key points, you know. So the first point is basically, what does your organization have as objective? What do you need to do, you know, and what is in there, you know, like how to create it, how to run it. Are there any standards to obey? It depends on the industry, you know, and then useful examples, you know, you can get it from Google. So there's many places to get and prepare a checklist. It doesn't mean that it directly adapts to always your organization. Huh? And then create an audit, organization's audit plan, and then you need to run the audit. And important is to document it because it has legal audits. And then it's not good enough to just find, we have 20,000 vulnerabilities out there, you know, and do you want to live forever with it? You know, you have to group it, sort it, put a plan on what is the priority, how to get it fixed. Can you get things fixed, or do you need to replace the device because it has a firmware which can't be replaced and is vulnerable, you know, so, or others can be updated, or you need to have enough memory on it, things like that. You have to watch it, but you have to do something about it. And it's a repeated process. That's the important thing. Good. I talked a little bit about compliance checking and standards. There are standards out there like PCI DSS, which is for the finance industry, for banks, credit card data. It's not an option. They have to follow it, so that's critical. Or Sarbanes-Oxley's, most in the US companies, they need to follow that, And what does these things, and then the NSA, they hand out basically helping documents like ITIL does, best practices, what you should check on your network. So you don't have to invent the wheel again. You can use them and you can define your strategy and data with that and build your reports on that. So that is absolutely key that you have it. I put some notes on, is this just for fun, in quotes, but or are there legal obligations behind that? And as I mentioned, they are, and most countries put that into government regulations for telecommunications, for finance, for critical infrastructures, and you have to follow them. Some of them I didn't translate, but a quick translation here. In Germany, which is we have a regulation for telecommunications, which is usually following about 100 of the key biggest countries on the globe. And they put in, you have to have a suitable monitoring infrastructure. So you have to monitor it and you have to document it. It's not just good, run it and then say, okay, we didn't spot or we have some, but you also have to document, and you have to document what you do. And there are various standards which you can just look into, and I did list the links here for that. One thing I got as a question, from managers of companies is, are we liable for that or not? And why should I buy a solution? Of course, the solution costs money. Also, the extension for telecom. But the reason why they really are rapidly going for that is the regulations state, if you as a manager in a company, that means the C-levels, or the board are privately liable in the event of if the IT security is neglected on a company, So so it's not the company will be sued, the people who are in charge of the company are sued, and therefore they say, okay, what do I need to do to get out of that? Yeah, you have to put security audits up. You can do it manually, you can do it automated way. Of course, a manual way is not really feasible for daily checking. So basically they say, okay, where do I need to sign a PO to get this in, to get out of the personal liability, and really personal liability, not company liability. Of course, company, you have the reputation and all their things, but manager will get out there, and you can be assured they will have a budget for getting these solutions on board, So that is one key driver. Good. That about the environment. How do we cover that? How do we solve? The first thing is that you, with discovery and inventory and configuration load in, or which you do with a backup, you get this information in, like with discovery and inventory, you get the versions in and of the software, of the hardware, firmware, and you get this information which you need. On the configuration for policy checking, you get the information in what is configured there. Are there any things configured which you don't want to? You can check on trigger on words, and on context like regex is very a good approach here. And of course, you can run your compliance reports, and you can do that on compliance, and you can do that on vulnerability. So compliance, basically, do I have things enabled which I don't want? And vulnerability is, are there things out there which are mapped by the vendors as vulnerable? And then, of course, end of life, end of service, the vendors do mark that. What is not covered, if you think of things like SIEM, with StableNet, we don't do port checks in terms of active testing firewalls. So that is not with StableNet. So you have to set the expectations right. You know, what do we cover and what do we not cover? So, but these things are the base for that. And then to make it easier for you, we offer service packages, you know, for Cisco, Lantronix, and others demand. Currently, there's a large Chinese vendor, very, very large, and they didn't update their CVEs, their vulnerability list since 2021. Of course, we can load them in, you know, but these lists need to be up to date. So it's absolutely key that companies do update. And where do they update? The US government has provided a service company where they list all that. So they collect it from all vendors who publish it. You know, if a vendor doesn't publish a vulnerability and it's not known by anything, so it won't be in there, you know. So that is also, there is a gap, but of course it's better to have it in a central database, and that's kept on a up-to-date, I would say, basically on a multi-times probably a day. It's on a criticality level. It also implies and shows the impact, you know, the level of this problem. So, and if you go on in StableNet, you can automate it, and you can then go in the system, and I will just swap to the system, and we have here a StableNet typical environment, the portal, and you can go to the automation, and in the automation select jobs, and then I will select a policy checking job or a workflow. Let's do the workflow first. You know, I did show you that you can get this vulnerability and information from the web, but we offer that also as a service. And I will just start this. And you know, see, I will now collect this vulnerability preset definitions, which we offer as an annual service. So there's a module NCCM, and there are packages on for backup and configuration. And based on that, you can load and this functionality. And I will just pick up EOX information right away. And I did it just before, you know, it did already confirm, and I did get the updates in. So it typically takes a couple of a minute or two or so, and then you have it in my presentation here. I might slow the whole thing a little bit down, but it's usually very quick, and it will read it in, and actually I got the vulnerability definitions already. And then I, of course, can use it and execute jobs, and I can also do an analysis on a job analyzer and see what vulnerabilities it did find on when I execute that job. You know, so very quick to get it in. And so it's not hard to, you don't have to collect all that CVEs, this vulnerability list by yourself. You could do it if you want, but you know, typically let a company like InfoSim, we have people on, they will do it for you. Of course, you have to book the service, but you know, it brings it directly to your system, and you know, it is a job which let me just jump back to the job and we'll do policy, and you see when I go on that, no, I wanted to go on the workflow. We'll see how I did it, and did do a modify, and you see it will schedule, and it will select and do the workflow import for you. And when you go on that, you will see that it directly gets it online from the InfoSim support pages. You know, so just a quick outlook on that. If you want to do analysis, it's the same as usual with StableNet. You can go on a device analyzer, or I would go here on let's take the group analyzer. And okay, I have a typical selection here, and we have prepared here on the default product. You can just search for vulnerability report, and you can do the top 10. You can do it on the days, minutes, and the time interval as you need it. You know, I will just do it for a day and on the top 10, and it will collect it in, and you see all the vulnerability, the top N. You know, you can group it by various criteria. One thing I would like to highlight is, you know, you see, okay, there's something vulnerability on this switch. It's a Cisco, I think it was an XR and or ASR, and you can identify and find out all that things, and you can also get the information where it did come from. What is basically the link to the vendor who said, okay, what's behind this CVE? You know, this is the vulnerability ID and this is the CV ID. And you can go on that. I did just jump on that before. And you just directly jump into Cisco, and Cisco will tell you what it's about, you know, and what to do about, you know. So you directly get that. You see it on StableNet, and you get directly get into that. You can do the same things with reporting, and of course set up reports and create that as you have with the jobs here, and the tools are there. For the sake of time, I will jump back to the present. Well, what we could still do is jump on the group analyzer, and you know, we could also get it in a table. We could get it in a chart and so on. And so just to let you show that. So, but I will jump to the back to the presentation, and you know where to get this information from and more information. Don't worry, I have in the handout all these slides and these links. So the CVEs, there are this organization in the US which does collect it, but of course we take it from there, mold it into a StableNet template which you can download. You can get more information on the national security agencies like BSI in Germany or NSA in US. They are typically linked together with the information. So if you get, for instance, a certification from one, it works for the other. Also, the scores are typically shown up, you know, like from 0 to 1 critical. When you do your audits, you know, group it in priority, you know, like in the CVS score, you can do that. You see it, you have it in the filter lists, and you can select on that. So put the highest priority on that, and the rest is, you know, going in over time, you should take care about. But it's important that you don't neglect it. You run it on a daily basis. When CVEs are coming up like 0-day exploits or so, we see to get it very quickly in our definitions, you know, because there is no time to wait. You need to have it quickly. You need to run it quickly, and you can run it at any time of the day that you want. You can automate it and schedule it, you know. So as I said, NCCM is the base for it, and these service packages are available on top for vulnerability checking. Policies you can also set up yourself by trigger words. You know, the key benefits: it's automated, it is documented, you can put alarms on, and to get out of the liability, you need to run it and you need to document it, and you have to put counter measures on it to get it fixed, you know, and track it, you know. So it's simplifying the deployment, automation policy, and it's a platform to scale. You know, we recently did it on a large fiber environment organization, and we spotted 40,000 issues. 40,000, it sounds a lot, but most of the devices were the same CPEs out in the field. They need to get it updated, you know, and you can put a job on StableNet to update the configurations in many places. So That I think I made it in time. More is on the handout. And of course, we're happy to take more sessions and of course, answer questions.